Well, good evening, and again, we're trying to get around. We've got gremlins. We tested this all afternoon, and everything worked the very best. And what's amazing is when you come on live, everything goes right to you know what, too. Anyway, what we're going to talk about is do police collude together once they target an individual? And we're going to start our story out with a video that Charles LeBlanc had taken back in 2009. And what the video shows is the beating of an individual from the Fredericton City Police. And this was the thing that got the ball rolling. And anyway, Charles will tell us what all happened there, how things developed since then to the present, to why there's such a confrontation between the two of them. Make him appear again. There we go. You're looking good. So you're now live. So taking it from that video to the present, what had taken place? Can you explain briefly at each stage?
That video, thanks for inviting me over, your second show, and I'm your return guest. That video was filmed in July 2009. And it was in front of the IROC. I just happened to be, from what I could see what's been going on, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, because if that video would have never happened, maybe I wouldn't have been in trouble in future years ahead with the Fredericton Police Force. But I just want to make myself very clear. I don't hate cops. I have friends that's members of the police force. I feel like Donald Trump. I have black friends around. I have Native friends around. But no, it's just that a lot of people have their own personal agenda, or that the police went after them, and they fight their own battles in different ways. But in my case, if you go to my blog, go to Google, write my name, Charles LeBlanc, and you'll see a video I made tonight, 17 minutes, if you could listen to the whole thing, but it's all explained, every action that the police came after me. There's about 25 to 30 of them. But after it happened, Stephen Stafford was acquitted about 15 months after, I think. And the minute that he was acquitted, Fredericton...
Just for clarification, was that he was acquitted 15 months after you had taken the video?
Yes.
Yes.
After that happened, the Fredericton Police Force took me under their arms. They acknowledged me as media. They were so good to me that it was sickening. I felt like I was a rat. And the minute Stafford was acquitted, Fred Wozzle, he's a cop on the Fredericton Police Force. Go to YouTube, write his name, Fred Wozzle, L''OISEAU, and you'll see the two videos that he hauled me across the street. There was a crime that was going on at King's Place. Well, that's what I thought. And there was 4 police cruisers there. And this thing you know, he says, they want to give me a ticket for riding a bicycle on the sidewalk. And the ironic thing about all this, in the video, you see a guy riding a bicycle on the sidewalk with no helmet. And there was 5 cops there, and nobody even looked. So from there, it just escalated, and I might add, the members of the Fredericton Police Force are making good money at the New Brunswick legislator. Off duty, they make about $60 an hour. And Monsieur Dan Bissière used to be the sergeant at arms of the ledge, and he, in 2006, he banned me for life from the legislator. And then he realized that the police would follow his every orders, and it just went overboard. The police, he would give police orders, they would follow, and it just went and went and went. There's so many stories.
Well, that was over many, many years. I mean, what started? I mean, it even started prior to 2009, but it was the video that kind of really got the ball going. Now, that video, that was used as evidence in the officer's trial. Is that correct?
Yes, it was used as evidence, and they had the police had the resources to call in professionals from out west to say that that was part of Stafford training, and therefore he was justified what he did. And as a matter of fact, the police officer, Stephen Stafford, I got no problem with him whatsoever. And then after that, like I said, it just went, this is the anniversary that they raided my place 6 years ago. And it just escalated to something that...
Well, you just mentioned something 6 years ago when they raided your place. This is the anniversary to that. Can you give a little bit of background to what came about that?
Yeah, what happened is on June, when Wuzzo did those videos, I fought back. So the videos that I did of Wuzzo, that happened June 23rd, 2011. And what happened is, I turned around. It was so bad that a police officer approached me and gave me another ticket that I was seen riding a bicycle on the sidewalk by a third party. And here's a fine. Give me a ticket of $140. Just go to YouTube, write Dan Bussière fascist. You'll see the video. So what I did, I found out it was Dan Bussière, the sergeant at arms. So I show a picture of his boss, Dale Graham, the former speaker of the legislature, and I give it to a police officer that was at the police station, Martin Godet, that is now the deputy chief. And I said, here's some evidence. I want you to give him a ticket like you did to me. And he said, well, I'll give it to the chief. So a couple of days later, I said, did you give Dale Graham a ticket? He says, is on the chief desk. So I said, okay, there's a double standard policy here. One for the filthy rich, one for the filthy poor. And I showed up with a blowhorn. And after half an hour, I told Martin Godet, have some sympathy for the people in this area.
That blowhorn, does that go with the sign that you also had, KGB yes. Style of policing? Yes, I remember that now very, very well.
Yeah, and that's where I said, you know, there's a double standard policy. One for the filthy rich, one for the filthy poor. And Fred Wuzzo was mentioned through the blowhorn. And the video, to this day, I still claim that at the end of the second video, you see him with the paper, push it in my camera, and he touched one of my testicles. And you hear me going, you know, and then he cut me off. So I accuse him, you know, bad words, whatever, and we don't want to go on the name, but he got mad, and I said, Papa langage de tapette de Quebec. Next thing you know, he said I was anti-gay, tapette. But, you know, it's Bernard Richard, they grabbed me, and when they grabbed me, they wanted me to sign conditions. One of the conditions was I'm not allowed to be in the corner of a queen and Westmoreland Street.
Just for clarification, were you arrested at that time?
I was arrested when they grabbed me. And they arrested. See, I'm sorry there, I'm being distracted. It's just we did so many takes here. I don't know if this is going or not. I'm not right into it. They grabbed me and they arrested me. And just go to YouTube, write Fredericton police, and you'll see it. And they wanted me to sign conditions not to be in the corner. And I said, well, it's the only way to get out of the city of Fredericton is across the Westmoreland Bridge. I can't sign that. So Judge Drew Dixon sent me to jail for 2 days.
Just on that, I mean, your place of residence is what, within
1 block.
1 block, so that'd be what, 350 meters, 400 meters?
Yeah.
And what was it, 1,500 meters or something like that? They said that you couldn't be near the police station. And what it meant was, as soon as you'd step out of your apartment, you would have been in breach.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, they didn't say meters away. They just didn't want me in the corner. They didn't say exactly you're not allowed in front of the police station or whatever. They said the corner. So that's what they do. They make you sign conditions that's impossible for the people with mental illness or anyone, especially smokers. They want to get out of there.
That's a dig at me, right?
Well, you know, I mean, that's another issue. But at the end, when it came down in January 2012, it came down to, you know, in court, okay, plead guilty. My supporters were there. Turn the page. It's time to move on. And I met with the prosecutor, and, you know, everything was fine. Okay, we'll move on. But the scary part about all this, and I never mentioned it when I did that other video, is, make a long story short, the police were very, very nice. Like, Matt Myers came to us. Hey, what you guys doing? What you gonna do? How's things going? And
now that was in the courtroom, is that correct?
That was in the courtroom, in the hallway. And then when it came in the courtroom, I said, okay, I'll plead guilty. And Judge Julian Mary Jane Richard arrived. Okay. So next thing you know, the prosecutor said, we're going to have victim impact assessment. I said, I got up and I said, no. That's not part of the deal. And because I knew the woman, there was about 10 women there from the TD bank. I don't know how come they could hear me so much, but, oh, I can't sleep at night because of that voice. And, you know, so Mary Jane Richard quickly said, we're going to have a recess. Then Bobby Beauchamp-Simon, a police officer, said, no, Charles. Nobody's going to testify, Charles. Everything's going to be all right, Charles. I said, what is a cop doing inside the courtroom? Telling me that everything is going to be okay. So there's something that just wasn't right. So she came again, the judge, 5 minutes later, and we laugh about it. Like, you know, do I need a blowhorn? Blah, blah, blah. It was over. They were hugging me, supporters. Turned the page. But there was something that wasn't right. And I found out 4 days later when they raided my little place here with 10 cops. And that was under the Criminal Code of Canada, 301. That was found unconstitutional in 3 other provinces. And it just, you know, they put me in jail. They said, you know, to themselves, he lives alone. He has no kids. He takes pictures. He has to be into child porn. So I had about 250,000 pictures. They took all my external hard drive. When they let me go to jail 4 hours later, I came home. Everything was gone. Everything. Papers on the wall, my modem, everything. And they were looking for just, if there would have been one naked picture of a child, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, I think Bernard Richardson, in one of the interviews that you had done, addressed that particular situation. And he said they were fishing, and that, you know, had they been able to find something, they would have been able to totally discredit you to everything that you were doing. And even though you might have been found not guilty, you would have been a condemned person in the court of public opinion. I don't know if you remember that interview. You did that down by the train station.
Yeah.
And that, but how they got to that, you see, from an evidentiary thing, they were going for the 301, but they had to connect your computer to the posts that you were making.
Rob Costello, police officer, sent a letter to Rogers, my internet provider, and said, I, Rob Costello, am a peace officer. I'm investigating a sexual child exploitation offense. So they told my internet provider that I was exploiting children for sex. Bernard Richard was very upset, but it was on page 41. But that piece of paper, we never knew. We knew they were looking for child porn. We knew that. I knew that. And when we put a lawsuit against the city, they provided these papers, and that's where we seen the paper of sexual child exploitation, and that made me very, very, very upset.
And that was the catalyst. But just on that, I mean, here was you were being charged for defamation, 301. But they they couldn't have approached the internet service provider with, you know, the requisition that we're looking to investigate Mr. LeBlanc for defamation, because the internet provider would have never given that information out.
Internet provider told them we would have never gave out that information, never.
So what it looks like to me, now this is speculation, this is just me theorizing, kind of understanding a little bit of game theory into that. So what they said is that we have to make this connection in order to get the prosecution, and that's what they did. They did use that, you know, letter from the internet provider connecting your computer to your post. They did that, but they used the child exploitation to get it. So really it was, we need to prosecute Charles, find enough information to convict him, but we'll do it by any means necessary. Now, of course, you know, their answer to that, if you recall, during the meeting down when Bernard gave his report down, and I believe Brad Woodside was mayor at the time. He was chairing. You know.
It was a copy and paste job.
It was a copy and paste job. That, you know, they justified it, but you know, every profession, you know, whether you're an engineer, social worker, any profession has a certain standard of care, a duty, in fact, and so let's give them, you know, the benefit of the doubt. We're going to be very, very nice, and it was an accidental cut and paste. Oops, yeah, there was 3 other individuals, but never mind that. But just by the fact that no one verified that document or checked it before it went to the internet provider, that was a breach of that duty of standard of care. And I never understood why, when you took action against the city, that you didn't approach it from a negligence point on their part.
Well, let's get one thing straight here. We live in New Brunswick. New Brunswick is Ontario or Quebec of the 1920s. There are no lawyers, civil lawyers here in New Brunswick. New Brunswick is the only province that the Irving, that one big billionaire company owns all the newspapers. The justice system, I'm sorry, Fredericton is not a city. Fredericton is just a big town. They all know each other's style. The lawyers, the prosecutors, duty counsel, the judge, the police, they're all working together. And going to the point that what you're saying, if we would have had a lawyer to say, okay, this is what, if this would have been in Ontario or Quebec, oh my God, I mean, this would have been huge, huge. I mean, this would have never went in court because this is an invasion of my privacy. They did everything. They did everything, and they even shut down my blog. You know, I mean, they're still coming and still coming, and I've been told that they're going to be coming again the next few weeks. But let's not forget, like I said, I did a video tonight. I put a lot of stuff I forgot, and the New Brunswick Police Commission, they all denied my complaint. Every single one of them. I mean, when I was attacked, when Donald Trump was elected the same day, I was attacked by 2 cops. That's another story from the Edmundston police. There were orders from cops in the Fredericton police force. It just goes on and on and on. And I'm sorry, Andre, if I'm not on the ball here. I'm tired.
Now, that's what happens when you get over 60 years old. Oops, you're not over 60. Sorry about that.
This is what happened when we go take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4.
But one of the things, I guess we're getting close to the end. I mean, that reference to you being, basically a sexual predator, because that particular document, exploiting children for sex, what does that mean? Were you, running some kids as on the street corners? Were you producing kiddie porn? Were you doing, that was actually worse than, making a reference to you as a pedophile. You did respond to that. And there's been several schools of thoughts on that, or several opinions on that. Some people said, yeah, that a way to go, Charles. Others said, Charles, maybe calling police pedophiles isn't quite the way to...
Yeah, my way of thinking is this, is you have some people that says, okay, the gays are evil of society. And the people that condemn the gays, majority of them end up being gay themselves. So in my way of thinking, I say, well, if these police officers, Fred Wizzle, Matt Myers, Yves Desprez, Rob Costello, Ed Smith, Daryl Carter, and Bobby Beauchamp Simmons, if these people accuse me to be a pedophile, how come I can't call them a pedophile? So they got upset, and they just, people, the public... It's just the days of saying, well, if the police says it's true, therefore it must be true, But, and that's the problem we're having here.
But almost at a symbolic level, weren't you trying to give them the message to let them know how you felt by their own experience?
Of course.
If they felt that shitty about it, if they had any self-introspection, they'd say, holy jeez, that's how Charles must have felt when, he's seen that letter making the allegation that he was sexually exploiting children. Now, this has been going on and on. Now, what would be a simple solution to get this all behind? The
problem we're having here is we have a certain individual from Quebec and a former military police, from the military police and Quebecois. Therefore, that's a mentality by itself. Now you got me with ADHD, Scottish, and I have my own ways. And it's very, very dangerous to have an officer that takes it upon himself and wants to go after a certain individual that he do not like. Like I said before, if this happened to me, what other person that this happened to that will never see the light of day in the media? They said it was a copy and paste job. What they do, raid a place under this sexual child exploitation. They say, excuse me, did you find child porn? No, we found marijuana, we found hot stuff, we found other stuff, but we never found, shh, don't tell nobody what you were looking for. And so maybe it happened to other people. And what would it take to settle this? I said this over and over and over again. It takes Leanne Fitch to step to the plate and say, enough is enough. These officers are going behind the chief's back and causing problem for this police force. Have a meeting, have a news conference, apologize for labeling me as a pedophile, and we move on. But unfortunately, these officers, very dangerous officers, are not ready to move on. They're going to continue and continue to come after me until I end up in jail or I take a stroke. They will not stop till I'm dead.
Now,
that's it.
Now we're coming close to the end here, but again, for a point is that I don't think you're saying that all police officers are bad. There's just there's just a few. In your opinion, like excluding the problem police that you've had experience, I mean, what do you feel about the Fredericton police force, their strength and their weaknesses from your experience?
Well, from my experience, from what I've seen, the RCMP there, I always say, well, the Fredericton police should be, the RCMP should replace the Fredericton police. I don't want the RCMP to take over the police force here in Fredericton because you have cops here that's born here. RCMP, the majority are from Quebec. And they just come here to learn English and do some training. And they're not localized. And unfortunately, we have Quebecois in the Fredericton police force they would keep their job here if the RCMP takes over. What I would love to see, and we don't have it here in New Brunswick, is a watchdog over the cops. Because I'm a strong believer of unions, no problem. But when you have a union with the Fredericton police force and the establishment is supporting bad cops, we have a problem. We have a major problem. I mean, this is the only city that will go after people that's riding a bicycle with no helmet. Which other police force does that? I mean, it's education. You don't see cops walking the beat. You don't see them downtown. It's now the scanners are gone. They've been gone for about 2 years now. And we don't know what our cops are doing. But once they come out of nowhere and they bring you to court and they want to label you as a pedophile or other issues, we got a problem. Like I said, if this happened to me, what other person this has happened to?
Well, that's a point. It all depends on who the person is. I mean, law, money. But a person who has more money has more democracy. The person who has more money has more justice. Some of those poor souls that we see on the corner street, when they get into difficulties and they walk into court, I mean, they don't have a hope in hell. As you said earlier, the courtroom is very, very intimidating. And for those who are courageous enough to try to represent themselves, well,
forget it.
That's, I mean, they walk in, they first, you've got to know the rules of the court. There's a lot of work that you have to do to be able to walk in and represent yourself successfully. And you know that because you've done that yourself. You've represented yourself on many occasions.
Yeah, that's the problem. They charge you with summary sexual assault, and the word summary, people say, oh, that's less of a serious charge. Summary means New Brunswick Legal Aid will not grant you a lawyer. And because there's little chance of you going to jail. And number two, there's no preliminary hearing to find out if there's enough evidence to proceed to trial. So 99% of the time, they force you to plead guilty, even though you're not. But you don't have a lawyer. So duty counsel says, the judge said, do you understand what are you pleading guilty to? Do you understand? And duty counsel says, say yes. Yes, I understand. All they want to do is get the hell out of there and have a smoke. But another thing that bothers me is the sheriff, Dennis Holman, when he had his appeal, showed up in Fredericton. The sheriff just pushed the media out. They ordered the media not to take pictures of Dennis Holman. There's a native on charge on trial now, and they parade everybody right in front of the cameras, no problem. Why is that now? Why is Dennis Holman so special? Money.
That's money is a god, right? I mean, everything is based on money. Yet those rich people still eat, digest, and output the same as anyone else does. But it's we as a society, we tend to put them on the pedestal. So really, the fault is with how society places them. For me, that's why in the past I've run into problems, because I don't go ooga booga to them. I've, the monarchy, she's just a woman, right? Even when I look at the role that she fulfills, I go, geez, that's a pretty useless, there's a chosen word. But anyway, we've got to wrap this up. Do you have any closing words, Charles?
No, just that people have to prepare themselves when a police officer approaches them. That smartphone or whatever you call it, I don't have a smartphone, I have a camera. I put my camera on video. You have to put your camera on video, because the justice system, after everything that happened to me and the videos, they still went against me. And they didn't believe my story. So just imagine if you didn't have a video. When you see a cop, put that video on.
Just to do a follow-up, last night I was presented a video after our disastrous broadcast, and it was from Bathurst, I believe. And it was an individual who was just walking, minding their business, and they were, the Bathurst police was looking for somebody under the Mental Health Act, I think, if I understood it. But anyway, they approached him, and they asked him to identify himself, and they didn't really tell him the reason, so, he exercised his right. He says, I'm not identifying you. And I listened to the video probably 30, 40 times, and at no point did they say that you are being arrested. They just told him that you have to identify yourself, and then they handcuffed him. Then another officer come in and they identified the individual, and then they let him go. And this individual did know his rights. But again,
right. I knew who the individual is, but the problem we're having with that individual in Bathurst and this individual here is the police are allowed to screw up 100 times because they got the resources. We're only allowed to screw up once.
Well, and on that note, is that one thing, when we do an analysis, is that, police do serve one primary function. One, they're there to enforce the legislation, and it's the legislation that gives them basically ultimate power. But to serve and protect, that up to a certain level is good, because it does keep stability in the society. It does keep us from going into a state of anarchy. When somebody steals a vehicle, let's say from me or anything, it's a lot easier for me to call the police and say, can you investigate this? And, that's the positive side. That's, that's the halo side. But now there's a dark side that also exists.
And it's very, very dark.
That's correct. So on one hand, they can enhance democracy, yet on the other hand, they can totally undermine democracy, and it's because of the powers that the legislation has given them. It's again up to people like us, the Canadian civil rights liberties, and any activists to,
But the majority of people, they just say, well, just don't break the law. Everything will be fine.
Yeah, if they only knew how many new laws are created every year. I mean, this is going to be another talk you and I are going to do
Yeah.
on police stating. But I'm going to close off with I'm going to redo that video. That will bring us to an end. Unfortunately, I can't see any of the comments that are coming in.
Oh, I'm sure there are some.
And that it's just the way the setup is. Anyways, yeah, so we're going to bring this to a finish. Now I'm going to be doing another show. I don't know when I'm going to air it because it takes me a lot of research to put my information together and try to get it into a coherent
It sure
order.
does.
It sure does, yeah. The next show is going to be on the psychology of influence and persuasion, how that mass minds can be influenced by those who can afford to pay for the propaganda. So I'm just making sure that I'm going to land at the right thing. So I'm just going to look at my screen. I'm nearsighted. I don't have my glasses on. Just a moment. Okay, so there it is. Yeah. Me and my eyes. Thank God I don't drink a 40-ouncer. Anyway, I'm going to bid goodbye. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a long broadcast, but I hope it has given a good overview to what has transpired between the the battle, the warfield between Charles LeBlanc and the Fredericton City Police. And in conclusion, it looks like what they were fighting was a war of attrition with him to try to wear him out. So, do you have any goodbyes? Are you still alive? Are you still asleep?
We're still alive.
And 25. So, okay, with that said, just a closing reminder.